The last topic we're going to cover in our intro to the Java Executor framework is the Java Executors class. And this provides a boatload of factory methods that are used to do various things, primarily to create different kinds of thread pools. Executors is a utility class that creates executor implementations. We've talked about what a utility class is before. It's a final class, meaning it can't be extended. It only has static methods. It has no non-static state. You could have static state. I don't think it does have any static state, static fields. And it has a private constructor, meaning you can't make an instance of this class. It's really just basically a bunch of methods that are grouped together under a common namespace, if you will. Utility classes are leftover. They're a vestige of earlier versions of Java, earlier versions being versions of Java before Java 8, that lacked default method implementations in interfaces. Since Java 8 and beyond, interfaces can support default methods. And that cleans up a whole bunch of gobbledygook that was not available earlier. That was not in the versions of Java prior to Java 8, so they would make these executors, or they'd make these classes that had an S at the end, and they were utility classes, and they'd have a whole bunch of factory methods in them. That isn't really as necessary anymore, but we're left with that as a vestige of previous epochs of Java evolution. And you can actually read something about why you should avoid utility classes henceforth, but this is a legacy commitment that can't be changed because Java is trying to be portable and backwardly compatible. There's some methods in the executors utility class that are factory methods that create different kinds of executors. And this, of course, is the good old factory method pattern from the Gang of Four book. And as we talked about earlier, these factory methods can create cache thread pools, fixed thread pools, work stealing thread pools, and single-threaded pools, and single-threaded executor, scheduled, blah, 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 all kinds of stuff that you can create with these different factory methods. There's also a default thread factory, and for methods that you use to create pools of threads where you do not provide a thread factory parameter, the default thread factory will be used. You can also make your own thread factory subclasses if you want to override the default behavior. The default thread factory implements the thread factory interface. So there's a thread factory interface which has a method in it called new thread. So it's a factory method, and you pass it a runnable and it gives you back a new thread. So it constructs a new thread with certain properties that you might want to have, like making it a daemon thread, for example. Many of the factory methods in the executors utility class use the default thread factory. You can see all the ones, like I said before, that don't take thread factory as a parameter. You can also define custom thread factories, and then you can pass them to these factory methods. So if you don't want the default thread factory behavior, if you want to have your own factory that creates threads, then you can do that. And that's a pretty good design choice. If Java was like C++ and supported default parameters to methods, they could have gotten rid of all these duplicates, but it doesn't. So it's a bit more verbose than you might otherwise expect. So that's a quick overview of the Java Executors framework. We'll be using this many places. You'll get a chance to use some of these factory methods in your assignment that's coming up to create the appropriate kind of thread pool that you need for the different assignment variants that we have.